Hello everyone, a very good morning. My name is Prashant. I welcome you all to AWS Architect Training by Edureka. Guys, can you quickly confirm if my voice is audible and is my screen visible to all of you? Yes, great. So many people already confirming. Awesome. So we will wait for another 2 to 3 minutes and then we'll start with our today's session. All right, once again, a very good morning. My name is Prashant. I welcome you all to AWS Architect Training by Edureka. Guys, those who have just joined in, can I have your quick confirmation? Am I audible and is my screen visible to all of you? Yes, fantastic. Thank you so much for the quick confirmation. So, till yesterday, we completed our 9 modules as part of this course. And today, we are going to start with our module 10. Module 10, let me tell you very clearly, is not there as part of your exam curriculum. Okay. This is just an introduction about migration so that when you go for your interviews, you have some fair enough understanding on what migration is, how it is planned, and how it is executed. Okay. So just to keep you guys informed about it, just to guys make aware, just to make you guys aware about it, this particular module is included in the course curriculum. Now, this is going to be a theoretical module where we are going to understand how migration is done, how it is planned. Okay. So let's get started. Right. So, what is migration? I want to understand from all of you guys, what is migration according to you guys? Excuse me. Yes. What do you understand when I say migration? Merging, move from one place to another. Exactly. Moving from one place to another. And when we talk about migration in cloud or migration of your resources from on-premises to cloud, it is nothing but instead of running your infrastructure in your on-premises, you move that on-premise infrastructure to your cloud. Okay, you move your on-premise resources towards the cloud. Now, why as an organization would you move your infrastructure? Why would you shut down your on-premises infrastructure? Why you would move to cloud? I think we already talked about it in our first module. What are some challenges with your on-premises? And to overcome those challenges, industry considers movement from on-premises to cloud, right? Challenges like scalability, upfront cost investment, challenges like data center space constraint, a lot of capex, opex, right? So all these challenges made industry think, should we continue having our infrastructure in on-premise or should we move to cloud, right? Why cloud migration? In your on-premises, traffic spikes and handling of those traffic spikes was not that smooth. If you wanted to have your infrastructure across the globe, then it would become a bigger challenge. That is nothing but your geographical distribution is a bigger challenge. Requirement of your data storage, high cost involved, sudden demands for operation. All of this was making difficult to keep your infrastructure running in your on-premises. So to overcome all those challenges, industry came up with the concept of migration, and that's what we do when we migrate. We move from our on-premises towards the cloud. We try to have similar kind of infrastructure hosted in the cloud and try to run our similar applications on cloud rather than running it in our on-premise, right? So cloud migration is process of moving application, database, and other business elements from your on-premises towards the cloud. No other, you know, definition of it, because migration in general just means movement, right? So all the infrastructure which you were running in your on premises, you shut down them, okay, and have your infrastructure running from your cloud. Case study one, it is about Coca-Cola migrating to AWS to achieve around 40% of operational savings. Now we all know Coca-Cola is a beverage company which provides around 1.9 billion servings per day globally, which serves more than 500 brands sold in over 207 countries. It runs hundreds of marketing promotions every year. Its on-premise infrastructure failed to withstand a massive spike of traffic to the website, which resulted in delay and poor user experience. So, how many of you have this doubt? Prashant, does anyone even log into Coca-Cola website? How many of you had this question? Anyone? Like, why would someone log into Coca-Cola website? Anyone has this question? Yes, no? No one? Only one person? Okay, so many people. So many people. Like, who logs into Coca-Cola website? Because I'm very sure none of you guys would have logged into Coca-Cola website till date. Even I, including me. Okay, I've never logged into Coca-Cola website till date. Then how do they say that its on-premise infrastructure failed to withstand a massive spike of traffic to the website? So let me tell you, who logs into Coca-Cola website is not us, the end users. We are the end users. We don't log. But all these distributors, suppliers who want to place their order, who want to get these products to sell, right? So they log into website to place their orders. Now imagine 500 brands, 207 countries across the globe. So can I say they must have a huge chain of supply chain? They should have a huge supply chain management system. Yes or no? Because you cannot be selling your product in 207 countries if you don't have a big supply chain management, right? So they have a huge supply chain management and they have so many distributors across the globe. When I say distributor, like we are the end users. Someone who purchases this in wholesale, then gives to the retailers, and then from retailers we get it. Okay. So distributors, they have across the world, they have so many distributors. And just like us, like we are given, right? Hey, good quarter end numbers, monthly targets, quarterly targets, and all of that. If you're from a sales team or management team, you would understand this. Like every organization, when they approach quarter end, month end, they're supposed to present a good metrics, good numbers. So even these people, Coca-Cola and all of this also, they give good promotional offers at the month end, quarter end, and all of those, or some sales, some summer offer, winter offer, all those kind of promotional events that keep running throughout the year. This festival, that festival, some or other. Okay. So across the globe, they have huge number of distributors who would visit their websites to place their order, track their order, review their order status, make payment, all of this. Okay. So that is the traffic which they are referring to. Am I making sense? It's not you and me, the end users. No. I agree to your point. Prashant, we never log in to Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola. Like many of you might even be surprised. Does Coca-Cola also have a website? Yes, it does. Guys, am I making sense? Are we clear on who visits this website? So Its on-premise infrastructure failed to withstand the massive spike of traffic to the website, which resulted in delay and poor user experience. To overcome these challenges, Coca-Cola decided to move towards cloud. Now, why it decided to move towards cloud? Because it wanted scalability, it wanted some new platform supports, full visibility to environment. There should be a metered billing, secure and isolated environment, zero downtime deployment model, and DevOps model. So all of this was the ask from Coca-Cola. Okay, they needed improvement around all these areas. So obviously, cloud is definitely a better solution, and cloud definitely can provide all of this, right? So they went ahead and moved towards AWS. So handle unpredictable traffic, they used Elastic Beanstalk. Lower cost of storage, Amazon S3. Access to more platform, again Elastic Beanstalk. Under Elastic Beanstalk, we saw it supports so many platforms. Agency visibility into environment, we saw that how we have detailed visibility to Elastic Beanstalk. Ops visibility to environment, Splunk, for the purpose of monitoring and you know reviewing your incidents, infrastructure logs, and everything. They have used a third party tool called Splunk. Metered billing, obviously AWS provides separate account for every country wise, region wise, depending on your business requirement. You can go ahead and have different accounts created. Secure isolated environment, CloudFormation, VPC, Splunk. Zero downtime deployment, Elastic Beanstalk. DevOps and agency accountability, again Elastic Beanstalk and CloudFormation, right? So they went ahead and adopted this model, and they developed their infrastructure on cloud. So they had a separate, they had load balancers, they had their server setting in different VPC, they had NATing, they monitored their infrastructure using Splunk, and ensured to integrate various other cloud native features. Am I making sense, everyone? Yes. Anyone has any questions, doubts, queries? Any questions? Guys, I would appreciate if you can be quick to confirm. If yes, say yes. If no, say no. Any questions? Thank you. So moving on. Just like every other activity, it has to go in phase by phase manner. Even your migration goes in phase by phase manner. So help me understand one thing. Let's assume that you want to go for a vacation for 5 days. Okay. You want to go to a vacation. You want to go for a vacation for 5 days. So where is that you spend majority of time? Before vacation, after vacation, or during vacation? Can I say a lot of time is spent before vacation, because you decide which place to go. You take review from different people. Then you finalize one of the place. After finalizing that place, you understand more about that place. What are the places that you can visit? What are the famous tourist spot? What is some good hotel? What is the climate over there? What kind of food you can get? Where you can stay, right? How do you visit so that you cover maximum tourist destinations, right? What kind of clothing you need to go ahead with? Is there any additional material that you need to carry? So can I say you plan all of this, and planning is a phase where you spend majority of time. To go for a vacation for 5 days, you at least plan 20 days in advance. Yes or no? Agree with me? Why do you plan in advance? Why do you spend? Because you are any which way is going for vacation only for 5 days. Why do you start your preparation 20 days, 30 days in advance? To make it smooth. To make it smooth. So that you don't waste time when you're actually at that destination. Agree with me? Like it cannot be a case that you directly land there and then you do a Google search, hey, which all location I can visit, which are the favorite tourist spot, or which is a good hotel, which is a good restaurant. You cannot be doing that, right? And if you do that, then out of 5 days, 3 days you will be wasting doing only that. Agree with me? It will not be a very relaxing kind of holiday. So just like how you plan for your holiday, similarly, migration also has 3 phases. Okay. And after you come from holiday, you obviously start discussing more about that place, like where all you went, to your friends, your colleagues. You start recommending if it's a good, if it is bad experience, you start them asking them to avoid visiting these places, all of that, right? That is post vacation. So your migration is similar to that. There are 3 phases: pre-migration, migration and validation, post-migration. Now, pre-migration is an area where you spend majority of your time. And it is important that you spend good amount of time here. Because if you don't spend time here, if you don't spend time in pre-migration stage, right, then this cannot go smooth. And if this does not go smooth, this obviously will not be smooth. So all of this migration task depend on only this element, that is your pre-migration stage. Only on your pre-migration stage. All your migration related part is purely dependent on your pre-migration stage. Right? So pre-migration has 2 stages: assessment, readiness, and planning. Assessment is nothing but assessing your on-premise infrastructure. Okay, someone is raising hand. Any questions? SR Guru, any question? Any question? No? Okay. Because I see continuous hand being raised. All right. If anyone has any question, use this question window to ask your questions. So talking about your assessment phase, please understand it's a phase of analyzing your on-premise infrastructure to perform the migration. Just before you can perform migration, you perform this assessment. You understand? Here in this phase, you try to understand what are challenges in your on-premise infrastructure. Okay. What are some challenges in your on-premise infrastructure? How are you going to address those challenges when you move to cloud? Is there any change required during migration or post migration, right? Or you're going to change right now, you're going to rebuild a new architecture. All of that is what you decide in your assessment phase. Which all services you want to move, how many services you want to move. So do I have compatible service available on cloud or not? So those details are carried out in your assessment phase. And in addition to that, you need to also derive total cost of ownership. What is the total cost of ownership if I want to run this application, this server, or this infrastructure in my on-premises? And what would be total cost of ownership when I move to cloud? What would be my monthly recurring charges? What would be my one-time charges? All of that again you need to arrive out in your assessment phase. Why this is important? Because when you go to your management would not blindly agree. You say I want to migrate and management will not say okay, go ahead. Management would ask you to come up with a detailed plan. And when they ask you for a detailed plan, this is what you're supposed to do. You need to put your plan in 3 phases: pre-migration, migration, post-migration. And in pre-migration, list out all the challenges which you see in your on-premise infrastructure. Okay. If there are any gaps, if there is something which is not working as expected, or you think there is a need for some improvement in any of the application infrastructure, right? So all of that needs to be checked in your assessment phase. This is the foundation of entire migration. If your assessment is not strong enough, trust me, your migration would collapse, because you need to ensure that whatever you are seeing in your on premises, you have full-fledged clarity around it, so that when you are doing actual migration, you know if it is supported on cloud or not, right? That is your assessment phase. Then talking about readiness and planning. Now readiness and planning is nothing but you have identified gaps in your assessment phase, you identified some challenges, you identified a scope for improvement, all of that in your assessment phase. Now how are we gonna deliver that when we are doing actual migration? How are we gonna address those problems, those challenges? You plan that here. And how ready are you to go ahead with this migration activity? You check that. Okay. Are you going to use any third party tool? Are you going to use AWS tool? What is the approach which you're taking? Do you have enough skilled people who can perform this migration? If not, are you going to leverage any third party? Are you going to leverage any AWS professional services to perform this migrations on your behalf? So all of that is what you check under your readiness and planning. What would be the cost if you're hiring new people? What would be the cost if you're going with any third party vendors? So all of that is what you check. Apart from that, you also decide which migration strategy to go with. So there is something called a 7R strategy. When you talk about migration, there is something called as 7R strategy. Starting with relocate, rehost, replatform, refactor or re-architecture, repurchase, retire, retain. These are 7R strategies for any migration. So depending on kind of infrastructure you have, you can define your strategy, right? So starting with relocate. Relocate is nothing but when you have your infrastructure on VMware in your on-premises, right? Basically moving from your vSphere in your on-premises to AWS without any changes. Direct movement from your vSphere when you had that infrastructure running on vSphere, right? You're moving that exact infrastructure to your AWS. Now this is what we call it as relocate. No changes, nothing. No changes, nothing. So AWS does support your VMware cloud on AWS. So directly from your on-premise vSphere, right? You move everything to your cloud. That is your relocate strategy. Now this is only in case of your VMware. Like if you have it on some other thing, it might not be supported, right? Then comes your rehost strategy. Rehost is nothing but you had your application hosted in your cloud. You try to build such supported application on your, you had an application running in your on-premises. You try to build such supported application even in your cloud and rehost that application. You had that application hosted in on-premises. Now you are hosting it on cloud as well. So this is called as rehost strategy. It is also called as lift and shift. So you're basically lifting it from your on-premises, shifting it on your cloud. So organization like GE Oil and Gas found that they could roughly save around 30% of It's caused by using rehosting option. Here you leverage AWS VM import and export service if you have your resources on VMs, right? So this VM will quickly help you rehost your application on cloud, and along with this you can use some cloud native functionality of features. Then comes your re-platform. Now re-platform is when in your on-premises, let's assume that you are running a database. In your on-premises you were running Oracle. In your on-premises you were running Oracle. Now when you are moving to cloud, you want something which is open source. You don't want to spend a license cost. So you decide to move to your MySQL RDS. So that is your re-platform. Am I making sense? Where you decide to change your overall platform, okay, so that you can have better, cost saving approach. Guys, am I making sense so far? What is your relocate, rehost, and re-platform? Everyone? Yes? How we can migrate millions of data from Oracle to RDS? Don't we face infra issue? No. There are services to do that. There are tools to do that. There are dedicated tools available. If you have terabytes and petabytes of data, I think your question is more to do with what if I have terabytes and petabytes of data? Will I be moving it over internet? Is that your question? Context of your question, Madesh? So there are services like AWS Snowball. Okay, using those services, you can move terabytes and petabytes of data without any major challenges. Okay, you don't have to move this over internet. You don't have to upload one by one. No need to do all of that. There are dedicated tools for that. And that is your re-platform. Talking about your refactor or re-architect. Now, refactor and re-architect is in your on-premises, you were using all third-party tools for the purpose of monitoring, for the purpose of notifications, for the purpose of scalability and all of this. You were using some on-premise infrastructure or some third-party tools. Now, when you move to cloud, you don't want to use those third-party tools. You don't want to use those on-premise infrastructure, right? You're like, I don't want them. I want to use cloud native functionalities. I want to use cloud native functionalities. Then here it would require you to perform change in architecture of your application. Why? Because in your on-premises the architecture was defined and designed as in convenience with your on-prem infrastructure. Now when you're in cloud, you want to use auto scaling, you want to use SNS, you want to use CloudWatch, you want to use SES, SQS, all of this cloud native services. Then you'll have to re-architect your application so that it can connect to all the services or get integrated with all the services and help you leverage this cloud native functionalities. Am I making sense? Everyone? Yes? Can I move forward? Now our current project is like data warehouse which runs a batch. So in cloud, what would be the native service? So Redshift provides you a data warehouse solution on cloud? Prasanna. And Redshift has its own way on how you can run your batch services and all of that. Snowball is a manual migration, right? So migration obviously will involve manual efforts. It cannot be automated. Migration, in any case, will involve manual approach. It has to be initiated and later on it can be automated. So will that allow similar kind of features what Informatica gives? Why similar kind? You can run even Informatica on your cloud. You can also run Informatica kind of services on cloud if you want. Because if you're specifically looking for those options, it may not. Okay. Because cloud native feature, when we talk about, it is not mandatory that it would support all the third party tools functionality and features. It also has its own limitations. But if you specifically want those features, then it gives you a provision where you can leverage those services itself directly or those vendors itself on cloud. Am I making sense? Yes. Can I move forward? Great. So now moving on to the next part of discussion, which is your repurchase. Now repurchase, because when you're migrating from your on-premises to cloud, it is important. When you're migrating from your on-premises to cloud, it is important that you know which all licenses you have in your on-prem, which all you are moving towards open source, and if there are some licenses in your on-premises, which all licenses you need to repurchase from your vendor for your cloud. Now help me understand, if I have an Oracle license in my on-premises, can I use same Oracle license in my cloud? I have an Oracle license in my on-premises. Now I'm moving it from on-premises towards the cloud. Can I use same Oracle license in my cloud? Yes or no? What is your thought? You cannot. Exactly. You cannot leverage your on-prem license there. There is a separate license for cloud that needs to be used. You need to purchase cloud-based licenses. Am I making sense? There's separate license for your physical servers and there is a separate license for your cloud. Okay. So you need to purchase cloud-based licenses. So that is your repurchase. That is your repurchase. Okay. Next comes your retire. Retire is nothing but reviewing your on-premise infrastructure and identifying those servers or those applications which are no more needed. So there is no point in moving this kind of applications to cloud. There's no point in moving this kind of servers to cloud. So identify those kind of applications which are not used, which you don't require. Better retire them in your on-premises itself. Okay. So that is your retire strategy. Then comes your retain. There are some legacy applications which your organization does not want to move to cloud, right? It could be because of some comfort, or because those platforms are not supported, or those might be business critical and your organization is very skeptic to move towards cloud. So those kind of applications and services can still continue to run in your on premises, right? So that is your retain strategy. Are we all clear with the 7R strategy, everyone? Sensitive data systems like HR and other system would not move to cloud. It purely depends, Narayana. It purely depends. Now, example, you have an application running on mainframe. You have an application running on mainframe in cloud. There is no support for mainframe. So will you be able to migrate? No, right? So those kind of applications you can retain in your on premises. So it's not necessarily the sensitive application. It can be other scenarios as well. Are we clear? Everyone, can I move forward? So that is about 7R migration strategy. That is about 7R migration strategy. So now moving ahead with the next part, because in readiness and planning, you have decided your strategy, how you are going to go about it. Now going about your migration and validation phase. So there you will talk about application designed, migrated and validated as per the strategy. Would to add some pre-migration preparations like your logistic around data collection, encryption, decryption, checklist for tracking your migration. Then you perform post-migration checklist, and then you perform your validation checklist. Okay, so this is during your migration phases. This is your during your migration phases. Yes, anyone has any question? Does cloud support game servers need more GPU kind of? Absolutely, yes. Yes, you have EC2 instances with high GPU. Guys, am I making sense? Yes. Can I move forward? Awesome. So now moving a bit forward, talking about the next part, which is your operate. Okay. So post migration, when it jumps to operations phase, that you plan to turn off your old system, complete cutover from your on-prem towards your cloud, or you can choose to establish two-way sync process to the hybrid setup. Hybrid setup is nothing but, at times you don't move everything in one single go. You might first want to move your dev environment, test the behavior of your dev environment, and then after some time you move your QA environment. So while part of infrastructure is still running in your on-prem, part of your infrastructure is running on cloud, that is where you go with hybrid setup. That is where you go with hybrid setup, right? When you have part of your infrastructure running in your on-prem as well as on cloud, when you're not completely migrated, so that you might have to have a two-way sync between your on-prem and cloud, right? Then third one is identify some opportunities to automate. Once you have moved to cloud, try to find what are the possible options where you can improve in terms of automating monitoring, patch management, security, backup, and all of those. And then continuous improvement mindset. This is all part of your operations phase. This is all part of your operations phase. Am I making sense? This is all theory, guys. I know it's very difficult to understand all the theory, but unfortunately, let me tell you, migration is not that practical part. Migration is all about how effectively you're planning, right? How effectively you're planning your migration works. Then comes your cloud adoption framework. We also call it as CAF. So cloud adoption framework is a structure for developing an efficient and effective plan for an organization to move to cloud successfully. Now this covers 6 elements: business, people, governance, platform, security, and operations. Your cloud adoption framework covers 6 elements: your business, people, governance, platform, security, and operation. Business is all about numbers. You derive total cost of ownership in your on premises, total cost of ownership in cloud, what is monthly recurring charges, what is one time charges, all of that you discuss in your business cases. When I talk about people, this becomes an important element. Do you have skilled people? Do you have people with right kind of mindset? A lot of time what happens is people who are at least 10 years 15 years into industry, they might be a bit reluctant to move towards cloud. So the mindset of people is important. Are people scaled up? Are they trained on this platform? Do they have that required knowledge to manage their infrastructure on cloud? So that is what you need to take care of in terms of people. Governance is all about, the regulations, the compliance, the law of land, all of those factors. Is cloud adhering to all those governance requirements? Is my business still compliant with all the required compliances and all of that? Platform, as we talked about, in your cloud, it gives you an opportunity to go ahead and use a lot of open source and all of that. Security, understand the required security for my application, my services, is everything available as an option? Do I have that opportunity, or should I compromise with security? Do all of this pre-checks, right? And operations, obviously, after I move, how efficiently my teams can manage it. That is about your operations. Guys, am I making sense? Cloud adoption framework has 6 elements: business, people, governance, platform, security, and operations. And each of these elements has their own specific rules. Any questions so far? Any questions? Yes, no? All this 7R strategy, CAF, do we have any kind of checklist in AWS or any kind of services? So basically, AWS has services, okay? But again, they would not specifically talk about the 7R strategy. You as an organization, you need to finalize which strategy to go ahead with, okay? You need to, depending on your organization requirement, you need to take a call which strategy would be right suited for your organization. How to ensure everything is running as expected? My organization is planning to migrate to AWS using set of AWS tool. So for this, AWS has a service called as AWS Migration Hub. For this, AWS has a service called as AWS Migration Hub. So what is AWS Migration Hub? A single place to discover and track the migration status, better visibility into application portfolio, and streamlines your migration tracking. Use the AWS Migration Hub API to track the status of migration from other tools. Okay. And while rehosting servers or replatforming databases in AWS, it can reduce time spent in determining current status and the next steps. So basically, AWS, just like every other service, AWS have a service called as Migration Hub. Let me show you that. AWS has this service called as Migration Hub. Though it is not currently supported in all the region, it is only supported in couple of regions, but just want to make you aware that what AWS Migration Hub is all about. So this is a service, a unified dashboard from where you can track all your migration status. Let it be migration of your servers or migration of your databases. It does support integration with some third-party tool. So in case if you're using some third-party tool to perform migration, right, you can integrate with AWS to check the status on this unified window, right? So it goes with the two approach: get started with discovery or get started migrating. So what is that? We'll try to understand that also. Okay. So what is AWS Migration Hub? Understand. As I say, it provides a dashboard view of your migration project, right? It helps you collect and view data from your about your on-prem resources and group them into application. From here, you can track status of migration using AWS DMS, which is nothing but your database management service, server migration service, database migration, server migration, and cloud endure migration. It provides migration status from following partner tool: Atadata, Atamotion, Rivermeadow, Migration SaaS, right? These are some third-party tools. This tool will not send status unless customer has authorized on this tool to send updates to AWS. That is very important. And you only pay for the cost of migration tool you use and any other resource being consumed on AWS. No additional charges in terms of licensing and all of that. Only pay for the cost of tool which you're using. You don't pay any charges for this migration hub as a service. Okay. So now moving a bit ahead. Guys, so far, am I making sense? Can I move forward? Everyone? Great. So let's move a bit ahead. Points to remember: for servers migrated by SMS, Cloud India migration, other migration services and a partner, Migration Hub provides link to the AMI which are created or running instance. And for databases, it uses DMS, that is your database migration service. And in that case, Migration Hub will provide target endpoint, that is the destination database, which can be used as a search filter on DMS management console, right, to track the status. There are two ways, as I was telling: get started with discovery, get started migrating. Get started with discovery is nothing but perform discovery and then migrate. Get started with migrate is migrate without discovery. Now, what difference does it make? If you have good awareness about your on-premise infrastructure, then you can directly migrate. Now, if you don't have good knowledge or good understanding about your on-prem infrastructure, then it is recommended you perform discovery first and then perform migration. So that is what this strategy is all about. So different use cases, which approach to use is what it is telling. Considering a migration but do not know much about our environment. The use case is you're considering a migration but you do not know much about your on-prem environment. So migration strategy which you should be following is first discover first, then decide what to do next based on the finding. So tool which you should be using is AWS Discovery Agent. You're running a small VMware environment, but have a mix of hardware that has not been audited recently. So again, discover first and then use server migration service from AWS to perform the migration. So AWS Discovery Connector and AWS SMS. You're running a small VMware environment and already have good understanding of servers and application. When you already have good understanding, then you can directly consider migration using AWS SMS. Right? Then the next use case, running a mid-sized co-located environment with Linux, VMware and VMs and Windows machine on Hyper-V. Then there you need to discover first and then migrate, because you're running with different environments, different operating system. So better to discover your infrastructure first before you migrate. Running a large complex environment with a broad mix of Linux and Windows platform hosted on physical server. Now this is your physical server. So here AWS does not have their own tool for any physical server. So you need to use some third party partner discovery agent and partner migration solution. If you have it as a physical server, AWS does not have their own tool. So there you need to leverage some third party partner solution. Right? So next, running a large co-located VMware environment with several services and dependencies along with internal experienced migration team. You already have a well experienced migration team who knows about your on-prem infrastructure, then you can directly migrate. You can directly migrate. Having a database to migrate or transform, so discover first and then migrate, and the tool used would be your DMS, database migration service. Guys, any questions, doubts, queries? Anyone? No questions? Do we have demo for this? No, Aram, because migration in itself is a separate course. Okay, so here we are only discussing theoretical part, so that at least you have fundamental understanding on how migration is being done. We don't have demo for it. Like they have included a self-paced demo documents. If you want, you can practice using those demo documents where they have given a step-by-step screenshot. Okay, so do you want break or we are good to continue? I want to check with all of you because I know it's been a lot of theory. Okay, a couple of people are like, let's have a break at least for 5 minutes. All right, not a problem. So let us do one thing. Let us take a break for 5 minutes. Okay, we'll come back from break and then we'll continue. Okay, so I'll see you all in 5 minutes, guys. All right. Hey guys, I'm back from break. Let me know once you guys are back from break. We'll continue further with our session. Is everyone back from break? Yes? Great. So before break, we talked about migration strategies on AWS. Now, let us move a bit forward. Let us talk about other aspects of migration and understand more about this module, right? So next is your AWS application discovery service. Okay. So application discovery service from AWS basically helps customer plan their migration by gathering all the information there about their on-premise infrastructure, analyzing that information and giving them some kind of recommendations or helping them analyze, presenting them to their management. So basically this service collects and presents data to enable enterprise customer to understand the configuration, usage and behavior of servers in their IT environment, right? It is going to kind of generate report, right? So here this tool is going to get all the data from your on-premises, okay, and it's going to help you generate a report to help you understand like what is the utilization, what is the performance, what is the behavior, how it is working in your on-premises, so that you don't have to do a lot of manual task around it. So all the information is pulled, analyzed and presented to you. That is what your application discovery service will do. Okay. Now understand how it does. So it pushes some agents or discovery connector, or it will import from existing sources, do analysis and show it to you on the migration hub. Show it to you on the migration hub. Now, when we talk about application discovery support, it is either agent based or agentless. Now, if you have different physical machines or different VMs and each of this machine has a different kind of configuration, right? You don't have a good understanding about them. Then it is recommended that you install an agent on every machine. Let that agent pull information about machine and push it towards the cloud and let that analysis take place. That is your discovery agent service, where an agent is installed on your servers and information is pulled from each and every server. That is your discovery agent. When I talk about agentless, it is mainly for your VMware vCenter and all those kind of environment where you have hundreds of servers running. You already have good enough understanding about your servers, but overall behavior you want to understand, right? Then you have this connector deployed in your vCenter, so it will get overall information about your vCenter so that you can replicate or you can build a similar kind of infrastructure on the cloud. So these are the two options: discovery connector, which is agentless method, and discovery agent, where the agent is installed on each machine. In agentless method, you don't install agent or you don't get detail from every machine. You get it from the parent machine. That is one physical host of AWS. You get all the information. Sorry, I ended up telling AWS. One physical host on which your virtual machines are hosted in your on-premises. You get information from that physical host and you analyze that information in your agentless method. But when you go with agent-based method, on every physical machine or every virtual machine, your agent is installed and data is collected from every machine and analyzed. Am I making sense? Everyone? Connector, we can say Elastic Beanstalk? No. No. Elastic Beanstalk is an hosting service. It is not doing any kind of analysis. Madesh? Am I making sense? Why elastic beanstalk cannot be called as connector? And this is not to deploy in your on-prem. See, this is not to deploy on cloud. It is to be deployed in your on-prem. Can we use AWS tools on physical servers? Yes. Like you can install this agent in your physical servers also. It is supported. Nimai, it is supported. Making sense? Madesh, are we clear? See, analysis can be done. Sometime back when I said, what I meant was, you don't have tools to perform migration. You have tools to understand your infrastructure. This agent will help you perform analysis and help you give suggestions that which relevant AWS service can be used. What kind of AWS configuration should you use? That is what this tool will do. But now when you want to perform full-fledged migration from your physical server to your cloud, you don't have a tool of AWS to perform that. Nimai, am I making sense? Analysis is your pre-migration stage, whereas migration is during the phase of migration. I hope I'm making sense with it. So this discovery agent has to be run in your pre-migration stage, not during your migration, right? And the tool will be used during migration. So both are two different things. So now moving on to the next part here. So you have a document available. You can refer to this step-by-step screenshots for this. What is application migration? Now, so far what we discussed was strategies for your infrastructure migration. I hope infrastructure and application are two different things. Yes or no? I want you guys to confirm. Infrastructure and application are two different things. Agree? So infra is the underlying resource on which your application is running, right? Infra is underlying resource on which your application is running. So please be informed. Please be informed. Your infra and your applications are two different things. So far what strategies which we talked about, all of that is for your infra, not for your application. Okay. All of that is for your infra. Okay. Not for your application. So let's move forward. We all understand application migration to AWS is nothing but moving your application from your on-premises and hosting it on cloud so that you can have better performance, agility, and deliverables around your application. So application migration phases, unlike your infra migration where it was just 3 phases, pre-migration, migration, and post-migration. Here it is slightly different. Okay. Here it is slightly different. Here, first is cloud assessment phase. In your cloud assessment phase, you're basically understanding the compatibility of your application, compatibility of your application architecture on cloud, the total cost of hosting or running this application on your cloud, what are the security parameters that are taken into consideration for your application, do I have all the required platform features, functionality. If I want to run this application on cloud, do I have all of that available in cloud? Okay. So that is your cloud assessment phase. After your assessment phase, you move on to the next, which is your proof of concept. Now, proof of concept is nothing but helping you understand, kind of building a prototype, on your cloud, and helping you understand how it works on cloud, giving you an essence on how it would work on cloud, right? That is your proof of concept. Now, in this, understand very clearly. In this, please understand very clearly. When you develop your proof of concept, you should have POC success criteria defined. That what I would consider that my POC is successful. If all these are passed, if all these functionalities are supported, right? If I see all this behavior available on cloud, right? Then I would consider POC successful or not. So you need to learn AWS, build a pilot project, and build support within the organization. That is your POC. After your POC is done, you decide to migrate. So very first you will do your database migration, then your application migration, and then after your application is completely migrated, you start leveraging other cloud native services like your auto scaling, automation, elasticity, high availability. If you see, like, you want to leverage those functionality, you can always leverage, and you can work towards continuous improvement, continuous optimization. So these are migration phases of your application. Guys, earlier what we saw are the migration phases of your infra. The strategy which we saw is the migration strategy for your infra, right? Right now what we are talking is your migration phase of your application, and what are different phases. Am I making sense, everyone? So don't get confused. Don't get confused. Both are two different things. So in a way, or in a way, this is also similar. This is also similar to your infra migration, but here you need to have POC, you need to document all of that. So that becomes some additional steps. You have something called a server migration service. So server migration service is a tool from AWS which allows you to quickly migrate your end-to-end VMs which are running on your on-premises towards your cloud. Okay, it will allow you to replicate your live servers to your cloud. It supports all the operating system, because on cloud we have support for almost all the operating systems. It is cost effective. Okay, and obviously it will give you a user interface to track the progress of your server. That is nothing but your migration hub, right? Why to use SMS? Easy to get started. It gives you agility, control, minimizes overall downtime, cost effective, and you have a centralized dashboard where you can track the status of your migration. So always, while using your server migration services, the sequence in which the migration should take place is first your database, then your file system, then your web server, and at last your application servers. This sequence is very important. Okay, so movement of your application is divided into 4 groups. Okay, database, file server, web server, and then your automation server. Please be informed that this is the same order which you need to use when you are performing migration. So working of server migration, how the server migration takes place, as I said, this is only applicable for your VMware, I mean vCenters, right? So you first schedule a migration job. So once that migration job is scheduled, it will create a snapshot. That snapshot is converted to OVF format and it is moved to S3 bucket. From S3, you can retrieve that EBS, that snapshot, develop an EBS volume out of it. From that EBS volume, you use that EBS volume and create an AMI. That is how you perform server migration. That is how you perform your server migration. So you first schedule job. During that schedule, you take a snapshot of your VMs, right? From that snapshot of VM, you convert it to OVF format, move that OVF, that is your VMDK, to your S3 bucket. Okay, once you move this to your S3 bucket, from there you can create EBS snapshots. and from that EBS snapshot, you can create your EBS volume, and from EBS volume, you can use that EBS volume as a root device and generate a new AMI or build a new AMI. This is how your server migration service works. And all of this status can be reviewed in your migration hub. Schedule, uploading, converting, creating AMI. And this is only for your servers which are running on your VMware environment or vCenter environments, right? So it does support VMware vSphere, Microsoft Hyper-V, and Microsoft Azure. So this SMS connector needs to be deployed in your vCenter so that this migration can go smooth. For database, there is a different approach. We'll talk about database migration also. Okay. So this SMS console can be used to import your server catalog, migrate your on-prem server to your cloud EC2. Next is your database migration service. Next is your database migration service. For that, we call it as DMS, AWS DMS. So database migration, before I start discussing, I want to understand from you guys. In my on-premises, if I am having a MySQL server and I move to MySQL on cloud, is it homogeneous or heterogeneous? From MySQL in my on-premises to MySQL on cloud, is it homogeneous or heterogeneous? Everyone? It is homogeneous. Agree with me? If I'm moving from MySQL to Oracle or MySQL to Aurora, MySQL to PostgreSQL, MySQL to MariaDB, or any other database to any other database, my source and destination database engine types are different. That is homogeneous or heterogeneous? That is heterogeneous. Agree? When your source and destination database are same, that is called as homogeneous migration. When source and destination database are different, that is called as heterogeneous migration. Remember, when you're doing heterogeneous migration, you need to convert your schema, because in MySQL the way schema is managed might be different and the way schema is managed in Oracle could be different. Do you all agree with me? Yes or no? So when you're working with your DMS, you need to first identify whether it is homogeneous or heterogeneous. If it is heterogeneous, you need to perform something called as schema conversion, and there is a tool for it. Okay, so it migrates data from your on-prem databases, DB instances, or database running on your EC2 instance. Migrate NoSQL database as well. Okay, AWS schema conversion tool translates database schema to the new platform, and then AWS DMS can be used to migrate that data. So before migration, you need to perform this schema conversion using this tool called schema conversion tool. When you have a large databases, you can leverage AWS DMS and Snowball, okay, to move your large database from your on-premises towards your cloud. AWS Migration Hub will help you keep track of your DB migration, and also it will provide you key metrics to monitor. So main services: Amazon RDS, Redshift, DynamoDB, Schema Migration Service, AWS Migration Hub, and CloudFormation to support. Right? How this works? So from source database to target database, you will have source endpoint, target endpoint, and replication task, which will be taken care by DMS. Right? So here, even in databases, there are 3 stages: pre-migration, migration, post-migration, because it is still your infrastructure. So the phases will remain the same. So in your pre-migration, you identify which application you want to move. In your pre-migration stage, you identify which application you want to move. right? And and here you also identify, if you're moving this application, the relevant DB associated will also be obviously moved or obviously get migrated. So in your pre-migration, you identify this detail so that you know which database to be migrated. Then is it an heterogeneous or homogeneous? Is it an heterogeneous or homogeneous? As I was telling you, if it is heterogeneous, then you need to use the schema conversion tool before even you can start your migration, where you need to convert your source schema to that of your target schema. Can I not keep application on-prem but migrate the database to cloud? It is possible. It is possible. But even in that case, you will need to identify which DB, which application you want to keep on-prem and which DB you want to move. Yes or no? You will take that call on the basis of application only, right? Now you decide to keep your application XYZ on your on-prem, but you have decided to move your database to cloud. So you have decided this. So that you need to finalize in your pre-migration stage. So that model is supported. So as I was telling, if it is an heterogeneous migration, you need to use this schema conversion tool, where in schema conversion tool, you need to connect your source and target database, assess infrastructure and understand the complexity of DB migration, convert your source schema to target schema, and apply target schema on target database, right? So database migration, as I was telling, run schema conversion in case of heterogeneous migration, configure DMS for DB migration, initiate DB migration task and monitor it. So schema conversion is well before your migration starts. Okay. It is not during migration, before your migration. And once your migration is done, you validate if all the data has been migrated, perform all your post-migration activities, integrate with your cloud services and do continuous optimization. So that is your post-migration stage. Why should someone perform database migration, modernization, right? Your business has decided to standardize the tool to have a better integration and engage with other partners and customer tools. Then you go with your DB migration. Reduce license cost. You can leverage on-prem, open sources in your cloud. So you reduce a lot of license costs there. Easily, you can manage your infrastructure without worrying much about your infrastructure part. You can have a POC done before you perform your actual migration to understand the challenges and gaps in your existing infrastructure. Okay, so that is about why you should consider using your DMS. Now database migration type, as I was telling, homogeneous. Source and destination have same DB engines. That is called as homogeneous migration. Here you don't need to leverage schema conversion tool. Okay, no schema conversion tool is needed. When your source and destination are different, right? DB engine types are different. For example, MySQL to Aurora. So there you need to leverage something called as schema conversion tool. So as I said, schema conversion tool will help you convert your source database schema to that which is compatible with your target database schema, right? And it will also mark those objects which cannot be converted so that you can perform manual migration of them, right? Your source database can be in your on-prem, it can be on RDS, or it can be on EC2. Like in your RDS, let's say while earlier you were running the database on Oracle, now you have decided to move to MySQL. So even that is called as migration. Agree? Though it is on cloud, it is cloud to cloud migration, but still that is a migration. And even in that case, you will need to perform schema conversion. Are we all clear? Everyone? Can I have quick confirmation? Are we clear? Awesome. Thank you. So this is just a step-by-step diagram representation. As I said, before migration, you perform schema conversion, which is compatible with your source and target database. And then you perform your actual migration using your database migration service. And all the status of this migration can be tracked on your AWS Migration Hub. So running SCT for heterogeneous migration, you need to download this tool from AWS website, install on your machine, connect to your source database, run schema conversion. Once this is done, it will convert and also highlight which cannot be converted so that you can perform manual migration. Some do's and don'ts. Free AWS SCT can be used to convert an entire schema from one database engine to another. Okay, it can be used to convert database. Target database needs to be created first. It is not a case that you create target later. So when you have decided to migrate, create target database first and then run your DMS. Do not manage, it does not manage your migration of your database schema. DMS will not manage that. Your SCT will do that. Okay. Schema conversion is managed by your SCT. DMS will just move your data. So that's about your module 10. That's all about your module 10. With this, we complete our course curriculum. I hope you all enjoyed this course along with me. I hope with the idea or with the, assumption in mind or the target in mind with which you joined this course, those targets are fulfilled. And I do assume that by now, all of you guys have fair enough understanding on cloud computing and you're pretty comfortable with AWS console. Yes. Did you all enjoy learning with me? Obviously, it would need a lot of practice and hard work. That is very true. I completely agree with that. Only server OS are in AWS, not client OS like your Mac and Windows 10. See, there is a service for that also. You have something called as, if you're looking for something like your, Citrix kind of environment, right? Then you have something called as workspace. In AWS, there is a service called as workspace, right? Which will allow you to get all your endpoint applications. Okay. So if you're looking for Windows 10, Windows 8 and all of that, which is more like your endpoint applications. So that is also possible. For that, there is a service called as AWS Workspace. Manoj, you can leverage this service. There you'll have all the details, how Workspace works, how you can get your Windows 10 and all of that. Sorry, asking this question. To understand, to be an AWS developer, do we need to learn any language? Absolutely, yes. You should have knowledge of language. You should have knowledge of DevOps. To be a developer, knowledge of DevOps is also must, and you should have, hands-on with some or other language. Okay. So, and more detailed answer about your question, Prasanna, I will talk in our tomorrow's session. Okay, we still have one more session. tomorrow. So we will be discussing in our tomorrow session on how to go about preparing for your exam, interview, resume, what kind of job roles to apply, what are some materials that we need to refer, how to go about architecting, how to think as an architect, how to visualize diagram, how to create diagram. So those are many questions which people might have. So tomorrow we have one more detailed sessions on all of this. Okay, right? So that we will be discussing, and we'll go more into details of talking about exam, interview, and all of those process. For DevOps, module 9 is only needs to be familiar with, no Vidika. For DevOps, there is a dedicated list of AWS services which you should be familiar with. Okay, so these are your developer tools: code star, code commit, code artifact, code build, code deploy, code pipeline, Cloud9, Cloud Shell, X-ray, FIS. All these are your DevOps tool. And if you want to get started with DevOps on AWS, so in your course already, they have included introduction to DevOps, so that you can get to know some fundamentals of DevOps. I think module 12, which is your self-paced, okay, module 13, right? One of this DevOps on cloud. They have included a self-paced module. You can refer to understand how DevOps works on cloud. Some fundamental understanding. So it has a lot of things to discuss overall. Is there any way to download this presentation slide? Amar, I'm sorry, but Edureka does not have that provision. Okay. Even I struggle at times because even I'm not able to download. So to maintain that copyrights and all of that, Edureka has disabled that option to download. But however, you have lifetime access to this content. Okay. So even it's not like, after 1 month, 1 week, your access would be removed. No, you have lifetime access to this presentation, the class recording, and all of this. Cool. Any other question? Any questions, doubts, queries? If not, we are done with our today's session. We'll see more about exam, interview, and all of those, details in our tomorrow's session, right? Where, I'll brief you on how to go about preparing for your exam, interview, and all of that. Is DevOps self-paced too? Absolutely, yes. The module 14 is your self-paced. Okay. So you can just to understand fundamentals of DevOps. It's not a full-fledged DevOps course. Okay. Just the fundamental part. Study material when you are going to upload tomorrow, Vidika. I'll explain, I'll brief about exam, interview, how to use that material. I'll brief that also, and then I'll upload it so that you can download it immediately. Any other question? For IoT services on AWS, which course? There is no specific course just to learn about IoT. It should be self-paced, Manoj. At least to what I'm aware, AWS does not have any course or any specific certification for IoT alone, but it has a lot of material which you can leverage. All right. Any chance you would be able to share cloud practitioner study material? Absolutely. I will be doing that tomorrow. Not only cloud practitioner, your solution architect, your developer associate, your networking specialty, your Python language book. I'll share all of those material in our tomorrow's session. Some sample dumps, some best practices guides, well architected framework guides. All of that I'll be sharing tomorrow. Close to some 30 files I'll be sharing with all of you guys in our tomorrow's session. Will that help? Awesome. Any other question? Tomorrow, how to start your career in cloud, even that I'll discuss. Don't worry. When I talk about interview and all of that, right, I'll explain you that. So I'll talk about how to find suitable jobs. What are some do's and don'ts in your interview? All of that we'll discuss in our tomorrow session. Don't worry. Do we need developer skills? If you're applying for a code developer's job, definitely yes. If you're applying for an architect related roles, then not really needed. Just fundamental understanding on what DevOps is and how it works should be good enough. So as I say, tomorrow I'll be talking about how to build your resume also. Don't worry. I'll share you some interview questions also. I'll provide a lot of material, which will be more than enough for you to get prepared for your jobs, for you to get prepared for your examination. Don't worry, I have a lot of materials. So all of that I'll be sharing with all of you guys tomorrow. Stay assured on that. As promised in the beginning, right? You kept your trust on me. So tomorrow, all of this would be shared with you guys. I don't want to do it today because I need to explain. There are close to 30 files. So all of this I'm going to share with you. It includes a lot of some dumps. It includes some cloud practitioner material, some exam guide, some study guide. All of this will be coming to you tomorrow. Yes, John Victor, I have that in my mind regarding the machine learning. So I already pinged a couple of my friends if they have some material to share with me. So I'll also again follow up today and try to get something before I come back for our tomorrow's session. Okay. Is this training suitable to AWS trainers? Absolutely yes. For AWS developer also, I'm sharing material tomorrow, guys. Rest assured, you'll have all the materials coming in. You have developer associate guide. You have your solution architect associate guide. You have networking guide coming in, right? You have your cloud practitioner guide coming in. Then apart from that, a book on Python I would be sharing. Some well architected framework I'll be sharing. Cloud best practices, latest best practices, some exam blueprints, white papers, interview questions. So all of this will come to you tomorrow. Don't worry. Fair enough? Oh, I accidentally closed that browser. Not a problem. Everyone, any other question? If no further question, then I think yes, we are done with our today's session. Thank you so much for all your time and patience. I really appreciate it. I wish you all a great day ahead, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Tomorrow would be our last session as part of this course. Please ensure you join without fail. Please ensure you mark your feedback without fail. Thank you guys. Signing off for the day.